Hi, welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm so excited to talk to you this week. We've got Dragonblade authors Emily Murdoch and Kate Archer with us, the dream team back.
Hey everyone.
Hello.
Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to talk. I appreciate it. So
Oh,
we
pleasure.
actually have three releases this week. Carolyn Warfield has the first book in a new series launching. She's her sweetie has some health issues, so she's not able to join us right now. But we'll talk to her in a future date. But in the meantime, rush out and get the book because the cover is gorgeous, the setup is gorgeous. Brand new book in a brand new series. It's called A Duke and All But Name, and it's the first book in the Entitled Gentleman series. And the setup is he's a duke who's not really a duke, and she's the daughter of a viscount who's not really the daughter of a viscount. So it's kind of sideways titles with no, with illegitimacy and all kinds of having to step into roles that you didn't think you were supposed to be in stuff. So, and the main characters seem like they're both very self-actualized, like independent people in their own right. So watching them navigate that, I think will be so much fun. And the new series sounds wonderful. So
And it's a complete bargain. It's a complete bargain, isn't it?
It's a huge bargain.
We're practically giving it away.
Within pennies of giving it away, actually.
Yeah.
Cheaper than Starbucks, right?
You can't even get truck store coffee for as cheap as this book is. No. It really does look delightful. I was really excited when I got to see this one come across the desk. So rush right out and grab that one for your weekend reading. And then we also this week had Kate, your book, The Regal, in a series of Worthy Young Ladies. It's the sixth book. This is the last one, right?
This is the wrap up. Yep.
Launch. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah. So this is the last book of a series of sponsoring ladies. So we have a group of 6 matrons who never had daughters. And they've always been very aggravated about that, but they came up with a plan. So they go out into the countryside and basically, steal someone's daughter who has the right background, but doesn't have the means to launch them. And this is their way of, they can introduce a lady to society and they can get all the glory of how wonderful she is. And they have some ideas about what daughters will be like, which are wrongheaded. And so it's been one, difficulty after the next. But here we are at the last book, and it's the Duchess of Stanbury's turn, and she has been the most stern. She has the highest standards, she thinks, and she's been looking for a long time, but she finds someone who is descended from the Plantagenets. So to her, this is it, right? She's going to marry this girl to the highest echelons of society. But meanwhile, all along in this series, I've had my lovely gentleman, Harry Vance, who is descended from trade, hanging out there, but never really making a match. And so it's going to be Lady Isabel and Harry Vance, and the Duchess is just going to go mad. And it's so much fun.
Oh, that sounds like so much fun. Kind of like a maternal Pygmalion thing. So
yeah, and interesting with this one is that there's really no misunderstanding between these two, and they're really attracted to each other right off the bat. And she would marry him in a minute, except for she's grown up in this magnificent house with nothing in it. They have no money. They have one old butler who can barely walk anymore. And so for her, it's not that he comes from trade. It's that he doesn't have that big network of relatives that she's watched bail her father out all along. And so neither one of them are wrong, but they do have that big problem between them.
Oh, and then the matchmaker who I imagine is not terribly excited about the match too. So
no, she's doing everything she possibly can to get Harry Vance out of the way.
It's like a reverse fairy godmother.
Yeah, and Isabel agrees with her, really. I mean, Isabel is not wrong about what she thinks, because Harry Vance's estate is entailed. He has no network of relatives. So what would happen to her if he dies? She will be in even worse circumstances than what she grew up with. So she's not wrong. So he's got a big problem to solve, and he does solve it.
Oh, Good. We like heroes that are proactive and take charge of things.
Absolutely. And I have to say, there are very few books that I read when I laugh aloud. I often think laughter, if that makes sense. I'm sure there are readers out there watching this who understand what I mean. There are very few books where I actually laugh aloud, and I have to look around and make sure I've not made a complete idiot of myself. And Kate Archer's books are those books. So if you love really hilarious, like genuinely laugh out loud funny books, please get Kate's book.
I love that you said that so much, and I thank you so much, because that
Well,
I
it's
feel
true.
like it's my bailiwick. It's sort of where I live, what I like. So yeah, I could talk to you about humor all day long. I wrote a thesis on it. I love it. So yeah, I always have those little characters in there that allow me to do that. And with the Duchess, you know, her household is not as dignified as she might wish it was. Her butler has always been posing as being able to predict the weather, which he can do not at all. But he's had to build these really complicated theories about why he said it wasn't going to rain and then it did. And usually he blames dolphins in the North Sea, and she totally buys that. So they're in it together, you know, their own delusion about this. She has the special butler kind of thing. So yeah, that was my opportunity to.
So my question is, sorry that I'm just taking over this entire
No,
video.
go ahead. I'm
Don't mind
perfectly
me.
content just to sit here and let y'all talk. That's just fine.
Do you see some of these things happen in real life? Do you people watch and spot kind of unique personality traits or unique characteristics and think, oh, I'm going to have to put that in a book?
Oh, absolutely. I modeled one character after an old boss I had, you know, just pulling out. He wouldn't recognize himself because people never do recognize, you know, their own eccentricities. But I just pulled out his particular way of lying and totally believing his own lies kind of thing. You know, yeah. So I do that all the time.
So should all your friends and family be worried? Should they be a bit nervous?
You know, they haven't said so, but yeah, I have. You just pick out a little personality trait, you know, a way of viewing the world, which is really what's so interesting about humor, right? So you have this worldview, which is sort of our societal agreements, and then the bigger circle, and your characters sit somewhere, and then depending on where they sit, that's how they interact, and so that's the fun of it, really.
Oh, I'm always amazed at how you manage it.
We have to have a side conversation about humor. I could talk about it all day long. You'll be like, I gotta go. So.
I would like to be in on that conversation, please. And if you have anything, any reading suggestions, I would like to be in on that as well.
The British are so good at it. I mean,
not all of us.
There are some kids' books, older kids' books that are British that are the funniest things I've ever read, like the Bagthorpes. You might remember them. Adrian Mole, 3 3/4.
Yeah.
Hilarious, just hilarious.
And as you say, the funniest, I think the funniest humor, which I think is very particularly British, is that observational humor where you tell a story which everyone's experienced a variation on this, but it's told back to you in a way where you suddenly see the humor in it that you've never spotted before. I can't remember the comedian, but there's an English comedian who has a whole 10-minute part of his sketch about buying a new pair of scissors and not being able to get into the scissors because the casing is so strong. So you need scissors to get in, but you can't because the scissors are already in, and you bought them because you need scissors, but you can't. I've cried. And of course, we've all bought something and thought, well, I can't get into this because I need scissors. And when that is scissors, what do you do?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I live in humor. I love it. I love romance too, but I feel like they belong together. I feel like there's just a lot of silliness in romance. So,
well, they're two of the universals. You know, like laughing and loving are things that we all want to do. We color it differently, but they're things we all want to do. So
right.
They do live side by side. Oh, well, so much fun. So, Emily, you have one more release. I'm running out of things to put in.
Let's just take a moment. Let's just take a moment, wherever you are in the world, let's take a moment and think of the complete intensity that this series has been for everyone in the Dragonblade team, the cover designer, the editors, the formatters, the proofreaders, marketing, publishing setup. 12 books in 12 weeks in the same series is not something I think I will ever do again. And I'm really enjoying it as the author, but I'm not the one doing all the hard work anymore.
Well, last week when you got your release post, you got a Madeline Kahn Blazing Saddles the thing. I'm tired, sick and tired of love.
So if you haven't been following along and you haven't seen this, I don't know how, where have you been the last 10 weeks? I have a series called 12 Days of Christmas, which is 12 novellas following the 12 Days of Christmas from the Carol. We are at 3 French hens, so the end is in sight, Evelyn. We're so close to the end. And for those who don't know, very briefly, this series follows 12 cousins, the Fitzroy cousins, who are all daughters of 3 brothers. You have a brother in London, you have a brother in Bath, and then you have a brother at the family seat, Chalcroft. And it's divided into 4 kind of groupings across 4 Christmases. So the first 3 books are all 1813 Christmas, the next 3 are 1815, the next 3 are 1817, and the next 3 are in 1819. So you'll see recurring characters come back, but you also see within that year kind of grouping, you'll see the same scenes, but from different perspectives. And what we have with 3 French Hens, which is out today, is the very first Christmas book that's 1819. So it's the last Christmas with the Fitzroy family. And I purposely crafted the series so that there's now 1 unmarried sister in each of the 3 locations. So they're all the last one of their siblings to be wed. And Sophia, who's our heroine in this book, she's the last of 6 sisters. So she is absolutely tired of marriage. She's tired of going to weddings. She's tired of the baby talk. She decides that she would quite like a scandal instead. And unfortunately, she announces this to a sister at a ball, a Christmas ball. And very unfortunately, a rake called Orlando Dunbar overhears her and has decided that he's never been rejected before and he doesn't intend to start now. And that's kind of where we start.
And he's adding her to his collection because the French hens in this one aren't birds.
Yeah, they are French mistresses. So this is a man who he's very much accustomed to scandal. And Sophia's, she's very determined to steal his kisses, but she's also very determined to keep her own heart safe. Who knows whether she'll be successful? I think you can probably guess no.
Because a man with 3 French hens is not somebody you want to give your heart away too lightly.
Well, exactly.
And have that locked down.
Yeah, and big reminder, this is part of the flame line. So this is the higher heat, not suitable for work, potentially. The covers are gorgeous. The covers are very suitable for work, but the insides probably are not. But this is very much one of my favorite tropes, which is, the very bold heroine and the rake who is both simultaneously absolutely determined. They are not falling in love. Never heard of it. And I love writing that, especially for kind of these insta-love novellas, which are a little bit shorter, but obviously it's a series, so you get quite a lot for your money's worth. And yeah, it's kind of bittersweet in a way, because this is the last Christmas that you're going to meet all these characters. And, if we go way back to book 1 with Jemima and Hugh, these are people that you've seen over kind of 6-7 years. So it's a family I have a huge amount of affection for. I first started writing this series in 2015. So that gives you an idea of how long it's taken. Yeah. So I wrote the first 3 in 2015 and I was a much newer, younger writer then. And I could tell that the series idea was really good, but my execution wasn't. And I don't know if any other authors had this. I don't know if Kate, Evelyn, you've had this, where you know the story in your head and you look at it on the page and you're like, this isn't the same.
Not it. That is not what it.
No. I know a well-known author who, this is her strategy. This is what she does. She writes the book and then she deletes it off her computer completely. I know. I was so horrified when I heard this. I was like, no, make a copy. But no, she deletes it and starts over. And she claims this always ends up a much better book. Cynthia Leidig Smith. Yeah, she's very well known. Award winner, doesn't do romance. She's in other genres, but that's what she does. I find that so scary. So what did you do?
So what I did was, this is long before Dragonblade. This is 2015, and I didn't come into the Dragonblade family until 2020. So I hired a developmental editor. I was really committed to improving my craft, and I'd written kind of 6 novellas at that point and 2 novels, and they were good, but they weren't great. Like, put my hands up. Like, I was 22 when I started writing. I was young, and I kind of was at the point where I was like, I feel like I've pushed myself as far as I can go on my own, and I need to get someone else's eyes, and a professional, not my mum, who was wonderful, I love you, mum, but not my mother's eyes. And so I paid a very respected romance kind of expert developmental editor, and I got back really, really, really good insight. But as Violet around, my wonderful editor, knows, I am a delicate flower when it comes to feedback. And this was it was not termed in the phrasing for a delicate flower. So I put the whole series aside. I was just like, I can't face it. I'm not a good enough writer to pull this off. 5 years goes by. I follow other projects. I work with other publishers. I chapter and with Catherine, and I come on board with Dragonblade. We have amazing success with other series, and in the summer of 2021, Violet said, "What else are you working on? What else do you have? Wouldn't it be nice to do a short Christmas series?" And at this point, it was like August, and I was like, I'm not going to get a Christmas series done for Christmas. And then I was like, well, I do have these 3 novellas. Like, okay, they're 3 of 12, but I've got a head start, right? And so I emailed her and I was like, look, I haven't looked at these for years. I'm a bit afraid to open the Word document now as it is, but I do have this idea. And I talked her through the idea, and Violet was like, well, why don't we aim for 2022 Christmas? And that gives you over a year to kind of dust these off, rewrite them, and then continue on, which is what we did.
And it's going to end soon.
It's going to end soon. The last book, so we've got today, Friday, we've got 3 French hens. Next week, we've got 2 turtle doves, which I think it's still high heat, but it's like the schmaltziest.
Oh.
So if you love your like real cute, I've got,
I love my heat
girls
with schmaltz. I really do.
Twin girls who are motherless and all they want for Christmas, ramp it up. And then the last book, Partridge in a Pear Tree, which comes out, I think, December 23rd. So just in time for you to cuddle up under a blanket, large glass of mulled wine or coffee, depending on your taste, and then just binge the whole series. Because I know there's a lot of readers. I think over 100 people have contacted me saying, I am saving them all up to binge over Christmas, which is great. If that's what you want to do, you do you. But it does mean that you've got a lot to read on Christmas Eve.
Well, it's been fun. It's been fun seeing the setups for each one of the stories. It's been fun seeing the covers.
Oh, the covers are amazing. Who knew that a milk
the French hen cover is so cute. It's just adorable.
It's adorable. I think Fall Calling Birds was another big favorite of my readers. But I have to say, 8 Maids of Milking has a milk churn on the cover, and I never thought I'd see a milk churn on a romance novel and still be sexy, and it is. I don't know how Dar did it, but she did it. It's a
milk pail, and I grew up in Amish Mennonite country, and I had such a problem with that one. I just couldn't.
It's not Amish style romance, that one. I absolutely promise you. If that is what you're expecting, don't read it.
Kate, your books are in the Sweet Dreams line. Yeah. So we have both sides covered, and the covers for the series of Where the Young Ladies they're just so beautiful. They're so
dreamy. Yeah,
they're just like worthy. Yeah.
Because we talked about, let's communicate that it's not going to be spice inside. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a more Georgette Heyer kind of vibe, and I think they do that.
They're just so lovely with the ladies themselves, and then the flowers along the
they're real art. I think it can be so easy sometimes to look through. And I went to a bookshop today, lovely little independent bookshop, and there's just so many covers, and it can be difficult sometimes to take in how much time goes into creating every single cover. They are real art. And Darba is just so she's got more talent in her little finger than my entire body when it comes to graphics and visuals and images and colors and everything like that. We're so fortunate to have her.
Well, and I'm always amazed at how much information is conveyed. Like
Yes.
how as a reader, okay, well, this is what I'm going to get. It's like I'm seeing this. I've got the title. I have this series. And here's the what is essentially the book's mood board. Is the cover. So this is how I know the story that I'm going to get. So
and you notice that there's no man on the cover on those covers, right? It's just the female.
Yeah, I have all the men. I found them and I've captured them and they're on my series instead.
She's got a basement. It's terrible.
Full of men. Oh, dearie me.
But Emily, you also have a free book this week.
I have a free book this week. I have a free book. Now, this massive caveat, time zones get funky sometimes with Amazon. So right now, time of filming until 8 a.m. Saturday morning UK time, but I think midnight EST time, end of Friday. Please do check. Just check yourself. As far as I know, it's free. We just 12 Drummers Drumming, which is the first book of this series. So, if you're not sure about it, that's totally fine. If I'm a new author to you, or you haven't read The Flame Line before, or you're not feeling super Christmassy, or you just haven't kind of delved into a kind of a novella style series before, totally fine. The first book is free. You can download it, try it out, and if you love it, please read the rest. It's in Kindle Unlimited. But if it's not, totally fine. I'm never going to know. They're never going to tell me.
We don't keep a list of people who download the books and don't read them.
We've got no idea. We've got no idea.
Don't do that. So, Kate, since you're finishing up with this series, what do you have coming up next? I think there's always this feeling when you get to December, the kind of like, let's whip out the planners like it's a springtime garden and we're going to get everything.
I'm just finishing up the first draft of the next series, which is called A Very Fine Muddle. And this is about a family. There's 5 daughters and 1 son who have been raised by a very eccentric lady who has a very mysterious past. She's been on the continent for most of her young adulthood. And she ran out of money in Rome. And fortunately, the Earl needed someone to come in and help him raise his daughters because his wife had died. So she has just planted all these ridiculous ideas in these girls' heads. And now the oldest one is coming to town, ready to do her launch. Their ideas of romance don't line up with reality in any way possible. And their neighbor, who is very stern and has always been trying to rein them in, the Viscount, comes along too, and is just running around town trying to stop her from, one disaster after the next. So they're meant for each other, but they don't really know it.
It's like The Big Fish, but in historical times. That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, and I think that it's pretty heavy on the comedy, this one.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And Emily, since we're finishing up, I know you have a new series that's launching in January.
Well, now that we are finally, massive scare quotes, finally, I'm really enjoying Christmas. Christmas is my favorite time of year. So I think having a 12-book series about Christmas is very on brand for me. But we are starting a new series in January, which I'm very, very excited about. And this is the Dukes in Danger series. So these are dukes who either go looking for danger because they're very tired of dull, pretentious, very staid society, or find themselves thrust into danger despite their greatest efforts, usually against the will of all their friends around them. It's, I guess, a little bit more kind of true to form of my first few series with Dragonblade. With the DePetra series, we went in a little bit of a family saga direction, which I really enjoyed, but probably isn't my most natural writing style. So I've gone back to kind of witty, frothy, joyful, adventure, silliness, romance. So in book 1, which is Don't Judge a Book by His Cover.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
What did I say?
Book.
Duke. Google that. We've got Lawrence, who's Duke of Penshaw. He's undercover, but most unfortunately getting punched on a daily basis. He's trying to track down his brother's killer, and he's doing that by going undercover as a boxer in an illegal den. which is all very well and good until a society lady decides she's tired of following her society rules and turns up and has absolutely no ability to stay away from him.
Are you going to have Gentleman Jackson in there?
I'm not, mainly because I find including real historical people very challenging because I'm not as expert in this time period as others, and others have done this far better than I ever would. But also I get a lot of complaints from readers when I include real people because they go, oh, but they wouldn't do that. And I was like, but I read the journal and the journal said they did. But I don't want to get into debates with readers because I know it's really important for people to feel like their version of history is right. And so I'll sometimes include kings and queens. Prinny will sometimes turn up and make a fool of himself, as he so often did. And that is historically accurate, so no one can argue with me on that one. But some of these kind of less known characters I tend to steer clear of. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be bolder. But I tend to find that it more often goes wrong than it goes right, for me.
Well, and your background is you're a medieval historian.
Yeah, I'm a medievalist by training and by trade. So some of my medieval books have quite a few kind of relatively run-of-the-mill people. I have William the Conqueror is in one of my books and has a conversation with a made-up nobleman. But a lot of the personal characteristics of William the Conqueror in that are true. For example, he continuously eats apples and he is known for continuously demanding apples to be available at all times, which is easy in 2022, but rather difficult in 1066.
And they would have been the little sour apples too, like the little sour,
like
tiny
hard to get hold of.
Yeah.
He's playing around with, he's constantly pairing them, he's constantly I have the feeling that he was one of the people that had to be doing something with his hands. That's my theory.
So an apple fidget spinner, essentially.
Yeah, basically. And I also feel like he was one of those guys that was always like walking and talking and not having many regular meals. Like if you're just eating apples the whole time, you're kind of full up. That is my theory. I'm not a medical historian. Please don't write to me.
Little tiny apples all the time, I think, would do terrible things to your stomach.
The thing is, though, we forget how extensive the trade routes were. Even in 1066, they're trading up from Italy. They're trading up from parts of the Arabic world. So I have no actual evidence for this, which again is why I didn't specify the apple. I wouldn't be surprised if he's having some of the more kind of exotic apples that we would have, much harder to get hold of and by the pound, extraordinarily expensive. But he was the King of England. Who's going to say no to him?
Well, speaking of 1066, I have a copy on my bookshelf right now of 1066 and all that, because I think it's one of the funniest books I've ever read. If you've ever read it, you should read it.
These are 2 book notes I've gotten from you just while we were talking.
1066 and all that is a quick, hilarious summation of England's history, and it's just so funny.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
So we talked a little bit, and we're almost out of time. So I don't want to keep you any longer than you'll let me. But we talked a lot about comedy on this time. Is there something that you guys are watching right now that you particularly love? Is there something that has where the ensemble cast is just makes?
I've got something, but it's controversial. I'm aware of that, so I'm going to caveat. I know this is controversial. I love it. Not everyone will. I really, really enjoyed the most recent version of Persuasion.
Did you? Yeah.
Oh,
I really liked it.
This is the third note for this time.
I really like. So a lot of people don't like it because it's a little bit Fleabag. Anne talks to camera, and there are some things in there that are added in, not in the book. They are made up completely, and there's no sex on screen, but there is sexual innuendo for sure. I find it hilarious. I laugh out loud, and there's a particular bit where I cry every time. I've watched it quite a few times, and I know that the purists will say, "Oh, Anne from Persuasion isn't like that." Well, yes, the 1925 version of Sense and Sensibility with Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet is heralded now as this classic of Jane Austen literature. There are 8 lines from the book that make it into the film. 8. So anyone who watches that and loves it has to accept that, adaptation is creating something new out of the original material, and that's what the new Persuasion does, and I really love it.
Yeah, I like the newer Emma too, and I'm not sure everyone liked that one.
I haven't seen that one either.
I watched that like 2 days ago. It's really, really, really good. There's one bit that I don't like, and it's right at the end, and I'm sure Kate will know what I mean, when I went, when
the nosebleed, I thought that was great.
I literally was like, what is happening? Fun fact, Anna Taylor-Joy was so stressed about how they would make her look in CGI, she actually got a nosebleed on cue.
I mean, I thought that was a brilliant touch, because it just goes along with, there is an undercurrent in Jane Austen's work of how ridiculous she does view romance.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. And a lot of adaptations sort of take that out and make it a lot softer and sweeter than her writing really is. So I thought the nosebleed was pretty funny.
Yeah, but it's
unexpected.
Very unexpected.
Everything about romance, and maybe this is something I shouldn't say out loud. And everything about romance is a little bit silly. Like everything, like sex is a little bit silly. Like there is
that moment where you want to be so eloquent and you just blurt the first things out of your mouth, and then you hear yourself, and then you can't take it back, and you're just looking at someone like, please pretend I didn't say that. Please just ignore me.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something about that vulnerability that, like, when you're willing to give yourself to someone, there's such a vulnerability in that. And that is when, like, the goofiest, because you're not in control, because you're not holding on to everything, because you're not orchestrating all the bits and pieces, you're letting go of everything. And that like, there's silly is just waiting to happen in that space.
Yeah.
And I also think there's not a downside to deciding to walk on the sunny side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
To just, not everything can be fun, but if you just sort of push your mindset that way, things can be a lot more fun than you might think. I just don't about being a pessimist. I don't get it. What's the payoff? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely think that that's one of the cases where confirmation bias can be your friend. If you're looking for the good things, you're going to see more good things. What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Like, ladies, I seriously, we could talk forever, and I know that you both have time constraints, so I'm going to wrap it up. But if you want to do this again tomorrow, you must just let me know, and we can, anytime you want to chat, we can chat. For those of you who are watching, I will make sure I pop the links to the books in the chat so that you can find them really easily. Dragonblade books, I say this every week because it's true, every week are the best deal on pre-order period and release. So you want to grab them right away. And if you don't catch them on time, you can always read free in Kindle Unlimited, which is how I'm reading lots and lots and lots of things these days. So ladies, thanks again for taking the time to join us. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Evelyn. Bye, Emily.